Hi everyone, welcome to episode 127 of the Arieknits podcast. My name is Ariel and this is a video podcast where I talk about all the things that I have been knitting and spinning on for the past week. Today it is Saturday, September 6th, and I have some exciting things to share with you all today. Not so much knitting projects though, but I do have a fully finished object now that I'm wearing and I'm excited to talk about with you. I have just a few whips that I've been working on. I did start a new spin project, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you all the yarn and the fiber that I dyed over the long weekend. I spent a lot of time doing some yarn dyeing and fiber dyeing, and it was an experience, and so I'm excited to share that with you all in today's episode. Okay, so let's get right into it. What I'm wearing today, it is my fully finished Birch pullover. I washed and blocked it. It is also now fully dry, and so I am wearing it in today's episode. The yarn I used for this is Knits and Fibre's Earthy Sock in the colorway Bainbridge Island, which I absolutely love this color. Birch Pullover by Andrea Mowry. I knit size 1, and I use the recommended size needles US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needles to knit this. And this is my second Birch pullover that I've ever made. I love my first one and I still wear that one all the time. So I was like, I would love a second one in a slightly different color. They're both actually quite similar color. They're both kind of like a lightly variegated colorway, but I love it so much, and so I'm very happy with this. I would probably at some point make a third one. But let me stand up and show you all how this looks on me. I have about 39 inches in circumference on this, so that gives me about 9 inches of positive ease, and I really like the drape on it. It is a pretty full length sweater, and so I don't have to worry about this feeling cropped at all. It's a very comfy feel. Sleeve length is perfect. I just followed the instructions. I didn't make any modifications. As far as the length of the sweater, I just copied whatever length my first one is, and I really like it. You can see the neckline here. It's nice and it's not too close to my neck, but it's also not super low. The lighting is a little shadowy right now, but maybe if I lean this way, you can see the color a little bit. It is very pastel and blended kind of colorway. It's light pink and maybe a slight lavender, some yellow, golden yellows in there. And I'm really, really happy with how this came out. It is a half fisherman's rib sweater, and it is done in a quite small gauge. It is fingering weight yarn, but I really love the end product. This took me about a year to finish. I cast it on sometime last year in September, and I really needed this to get done. Because 1, I really wanted the end product, and 2, I did cast on another fingering weight sweater on September 1st, and I wanted to get this one off the needles, and so I don't have like 2 fingering weight sweaters on the needle. But this is feeling really nice. Honestly, it's a little warm right now in my office, so it is a little warm right now, but I'm gonna sit and talk. I do love how the raglan increases look on this. It's really great. I do really love how this looks and feels, and so I'm excited to wear it for the rest of forever. But yeah, so that's my Birch pullover. Also, both of my Birch pullovers were done in a non-superwash yarn. My first one was in the Woolbird non-superwash fingering weight yarn, and this is Knits non-superwash fingering weight yarn, and they're both so soft. They do kind of, I know my Woolbird one pills a little bit. This one will probably pill a bit as well, but it's super soft, and the pilling does not bother me actually. So yeah, I just love how it feels, and it's going to be extra nice and cozy once the weather starts to get a little bit colder. Okay, let's move right on into my whips for this week. I want to start off with, I really did just kind of like focus on just a few projects this week, and so I made quite a bit of progress, I think. Here's my Fleur Tee, and I'm trying to untangle the yarn right now, but I actually finished the body. So it's now looking like a tee. You can see it all now. Here it is. Yay. My needles right now I just did like 2 rows of the neck ribbing, and so that's kind of like what's happening right now with my needles. I'm trying not to poke myself in the eye with it. But here's what it's looking like so far. So this is the Fleur Tee by Woolbird, and the yarn I'm using is Sewrella Cotton Linen Wool in the colorway Queen Mary's Rose Garden. I am knitting size 2, and I'm using US 1.5 needles, 2.5 millimeter needles to knit this. And what else? Yes, okay. So this is worked bottom up, and let me find my stitch marker from last week. Okay, so was this? Oh no, right here in the front. So this was my stitch marker from last week, I'm pretty sure. I actually have quite a bit of stitch markers on this right now for other counting purposes, but I'm pretty sure I was here. And so I did split for front and back since then. I finished the back, knitted flat, and then I did the front as well. And there's, of course, you can see like the front does, it stops earlier for a lower neck front than the back. And then you do some shaping, some decreases for the shoulder, right and left shoulder, front shoulder. So I did that, and then interestingly, I would say, or maybe not, because I've made bottom up tees, sweaters in the past, and I think a lot of them, to connect it at the top shoulder, usually it's like a 3 needle bind off. But for this pattern, you do just bind off everything, and then you do sew it, you seam it together at the top, and that wasn't too bad for me, because it's a really short amount that you have to seam together, and so that actually, at first I was like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but I really kind of like, I just did a mattress stitch, and it looks pretty fine to me, and so worked out great. And then I did just pick up for the neck, as I said before, and so I'm working on that. And I did try it on, and it fits quite nicely, and so I'm really happy with that. It is a bit shorter than I thought that it would be, just because right where you split for the front and back, which is the underarm, I thought was going to sit a little bit lower on me, and so that would mean there would be more length at the bottom hem, but it does sit quite snug under the arm. Not so snug where it's bothering me, but it is higher up in the underarm than I was anticipating, and that could just be I need to check my row gauge to see if, however many rows, because this section, when you split and you start working flat, there are row counts, although there's also measurements that you can knit to, but I just followed the row counts because I did do measuring, and it seemed to match up, so my gauge is probably fine. And the fit is great, although we'll see how it feels with the sleeves on, because sleeves could add a little bit more bulk, but I am liking how it's fitting right now. But it's good for me to keep in mind that the underarm does sit a little bit closer to the underarm, and so if I want to make it a little bit longer for my sister and for my mom, because I'm making matching tees with this pattern for my sister and my mom, and I think that they don't want it cropped at all, and so I'm just going to have to keep that in mind and make it a little bit longer than the pattern states. I did follow just because I needed to know pattern-wise as it is. I did make the body length to what the regular length is in the pattern. I think that there's measurements for regular / slightly cropped. It's not actually that cropped, but I forget what it's called in the pattern, but there's also like a longer length, and so I did do the shorter length for me, but I think I'll probably go for the longer length for my sister and my mom. But yeah, this is how it's looking, and I really like that it's now looking like a garment, and also the stitch pattern is really pretty. I really like how it's looking, and I think it's pretty in this color. It's going to be pretty in all the other colors. And yeah, okay. So I did work quite a bit on this week because I just wanted to get that not out of the way, because I'm enjoying it actually right now. And once you split for front and back, because you're only now working on half of the stitches, even though you are having to do work it flat and basically do purls all on one of the rows, it felt like it went a lot faster, and so I think that kind of helped with the motivation. I finished the back panel, and I was like, I'm just going to start the front, and then once I got to like one side, I was like, well, that was so short, I'll just do the other side. Then I was like, well, I at this point should just connect them, seam it together at the shoulders, and then I was like, I should just pick up for the neckline, and that's where we're at. So it's working out really nicely. I did have to kind of modify how I work on this, not anything due to the pattern, but if you watched last week's video and you know my finger, I got a cut on my finger on accident, and it's still healing, and I think it's going to take a while for this to heal, and I can't quite bend my finger quite yet, and I'm a little cautious of it, but this is the finger that I usually hold my tension with my yarn. It is my left index finger. So I told you all last week that I figured out how to knit with it, and I just have my yarn, instead of up here right at the top where I usually have my yarn, I just have it down here. However, for this particular knit, because it's a fingering weight and it's smaller needles, usually what I do, and I do this for my sock knitting, and I also do this for other fingering weight garments that need a tighter gauge, I wrap it around my index finger twice so it has more tension, and it kind of started hurting my finger, so I had to switch, and I didn't want to stop working on this, and so I did switch to knitting it with holding the yarn in my right hand instead. And actually, when I first started knitting, that is how I learned how to knit. And then I switched over to continental knitting, which for me is a lot faster. But for this case, I was like, I need my finger to heal, and I don't want to make it worse by working on this, but I want to work on it. And so I did switch back to knitting with carrying the yarn in my right hand. It's a lot slower, but and I was a little worried that it would not, tension-wise, would not match, but I think that it looks great. I was very cautious. I was cautious of it. Like, when I was working on it, I was like, if it's going to start to look really wonky gauge-wise, then I will stop. But it looked fine, and so I continued in that way, and so that's going to be how I go about this top for the next little bit. I got a little more used to it, and so it is kind of nice to, do both. Some of my other knitting projects, I am doing it where I wrap it around the bottom part of my left finger, but not when I have to wrap it around twice. So yeah, I'm really happy with the progress so far on my Fleur Tee, and I'm hoping within this next week I can finish the neck ribbing and then work on a sleeve and see how that goes. So that is the Fleur Tee by Woolbird. And then I have next, I did start, I did work on this earlier in the week before my finger started hurting a bit, because again, for sock knitting, I do wrap the yarn around my finger twice to make it tighter. But I did make some progress, and I wanted to show it to you all on my pressed flower socks right here. This is by Amy Christoffers. I forget what a savory knitting, I think, is like the name, the handle. But I think, and I forgot to put a stitch marker on this, but I think last time I was only up to here. I only did this section, and then I added this much more, which is really great. And the yarn I'm using for this, my main color is Explorer Knits Denali Sock in the colorway Thistle, and the contrast color is my Handspun Union Fibre yarn. As you can see, I am still in the light pink color of my Handspun, but the contrast is really nice with my main color, and so I'm perfectly happy with how this comes out. I do think that my second side of the sock will just be completely different color, contrast color, just because of the way my Handspun is like, it's pretty slow color changing, but it'll be fine. It'll be pretty cute, I think. Okay, this is a one size pattern, so there's only stitch counts for one size, just because I think the stitch pattern, the next size to make it all still work out would be pretty big. I think you could probably do it, but maybe just like changing your yarn, changing your gauge to get a slightly different fit if your foot does not fit in this sock size width, will probably be the way to go. But lucky for me, this should fit, maybe not perfectly, but it'll be fine. Like, my foot will not be swimming in this sock, and it's not a super tight sock either. Okay, I'm using US 1 needles, 2.25 millimeter needles to knit this, and this is my default sock knitting needle size, and the pattern actually calls for 2 different needle sizes, and I'm just using one, and this one is like in between those 2 needle sizes. What else? Oh, this one does have a heel, forethought heel, and I think that's when I put in, I don't know if you can see it, because I used a scrap yarn that's kind of like the same color as my contrast color, but right under like this row of flowers, I just knit in a scrap piece of yarn, and that's where the heel is going to go in later. And I'm not confident in finishing the entire sock like with the toe and then going back in with the heel. And so I think once I get maybe one more flower chart done under here, I will switch and put in the heel so that I can try on the sock and make sure that the length of the foot will actually fit my foot. So I think that that's the plan. I was hoping to do that this week, but again, my finger started hurting with wrapping the yarn around my finger twice, and so I did stop working on this during the week, but I got a lot of it done though earlier in the week, and so I'm happy with this progress. It is nice because these are my September socks, and I did start them in August because I had some extra time, and it was, I think, a good idea because this is two different, it's not, it's kind of color work. What is it called? Oh my gosh, something knitting, because you're not working 2 colors at the same time. Each row you kind of like switch, or every other row you switch which color yarn you're working with, which I find to be a lot easier and way more fun in my opinion. But you get, some nice 2 color kind of designs going on. So it's working out really nice. I really like my color choices and working on this. But yeah, so I'm hoping I can get a little more of this done this week, but we'll see how my finger feels for working on that. So yeah, maybe I could do, work on this with the yarn in my right hand too, but it is kind of slow and annoying, so we'll see. But yeah, so that's my pressed flowers socks. And then this one, exciting. I worked on this so much this week because I could actually knit on this with the yarn in my left, like normally, just in the modified position for my finger, and it did not hurt my finger as much as my other projects. And so I did also it's a new cast on, and of course I work on new cast ons like crazy in the beginning because I'm so excited. But this is my Mabel's sweater by Joji Locatelli for her fall knit along, and I am using Explore Knits Denali sock in the colorway Leaf Peeping, which I got at Flock, and I am knitting size 2. I'm using US 3 needles, 3.25 millimeter needles to knit this, which is the recommended needle size. My gauge swatch came out perfect after washing and blocking, and so I was very happy with that. And let me hold up what I have right now. It's quite a bit actually, because I split for sleeves. I actually just split for sleeves this morning, and just barely. I think I worked maybe, that might be 4 rows right under the sleeve. But now it's looking like a sweater. It looks kind of small, but my gauge swatch also looked kind of small, and after washing and blocking it opened up quite a bit, or maybe not a ton, but definitely I was a little worried. I was like, am I gonna have to go up a needle size? But it blocked out nicely, and so I'm not concerned about this. This stitch, I think she calls it a waffle stitch, but it does involve, it's a 4-row pattern repeat, and it does involve doing knit one below and purl one below. But it has this nice squishy texture. It's like something in between, I feel like it's in between brioche and half fisherman's rib kind of a feel. Could also be the gauge. It is quite open, but I like it. I like how it looks and the texture I'm getting out of this. And so I'm very pleased with how this is coming out. Yay. This is the other fingering weight sweater that I was like, I need to finish my Birch before I start this. The Birch stitch or like fabric that comes out is a lot more dense than this one. So I think it'll be a nice addition to my wardrobe to have like similar-ish kind of feel or like, you know, stitch looking. But it is slightly different and also different kind of fabric drape. And so this will be really nice. I am liking working on it so far. I finally memorized, I was trying to figure out, because actually this stitch is a little difficult to count your rows. Because if you're just looking at the stitches and you're counting the, you know, like the knit columns, because it does have like that ribbed, 1x1 ribbed look. If you count the knit stitches or like the V's, unlike fisherman's rib and brioche, where each you know V that you count is like the equivalent to 2 rows, and so you kind of count and then, you know, multiply by 2, and that's kind of where you're at, like kind of sort of. This one, it's when you knit 4 rows, you get 3 V's. And so it's a little confusing in that way. I was trying to just, whenever I have kind of like a stitch that's kind of hard to read, I was trying to, as I count every row, I'm trying to look at it and see if I can see a pattern. And there is kind of like an elongated stitch that I can see when, you know, that knit one below kind of happens. And so I've been kind of trying to follow that. But if you're knitting this and also having problems, or you're curious about knitting this, but you're worried about the counting problem, what I've been doing to count and to make sure is there is the raglan stitch right down here is just a purl stitch from the right side, and you do purl that every round, every row. And so if you just count the purl stitches in the raglan, that should tell you how many rows that you've worked. And so that is what I've been doing. And also now that I'm in the round, in the body, the sides are also purl stitches, and they're purls every single round. And so I can just count that to know how many rows I'm in. And also I am using that to figure out like which row of the pattern that I'm on. And so I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, okay, I can restart the pattern 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's been working out really nice for me. I don't think that I've missed kind of like a pattern repeat anywhere. And if I did, then I can't see it. But it's been, and I've also been able to now read a little bit my stitches, so I know what is the next row of the pattern that I'm working. So in the beginning, I had to focus kind of a lot, but now I feel like I can relax a bit. So I can show you, this is my first skein. I'm almost done with it. And so my plan is going to be continue working on the body until I am done with this skein. And then for my second skein, I'm going to do the neck, because that always makes the sweater start to really look nice and polished and like a sweater. So I'll do the neck, and then I'll probably move on to work on the sleeves before I go back to work on the body. And yeah, that's my plan. I'm in, I think, a really good spot for this, for the knit along. Even if I don't finish it for the knit along, I'm really enjoying working on it right now. And the stitch pattern is, you know, I have to pay a little more attention, but it's, once I know what I'm working for the row, I can just kind of like zone out a little bit and just work on that. So it's been really nice. I like the texture. I like how it's feeling. Love the color. It's making me feel really ready for fall. And I would love to have this done this year so that I can wear it in the fall this year. Would be really nice. So yeah, so this is my Mabel sweater. And that was my new cast on for the week, and I got a lot of knitting done on it. Okay, but that is all the whips, actually. I did not work on any of my other projects this week. I just felt like I was feeling in the zone for these projects specifically, and so I just wanted to keep following that feeling this week. Okay, next I want to show you, I finally fully finished my finished spin from last week, and I have it skeined up so you can actually see it. So I wanted to show it to you. This is my little Fibre Co. Rambouillet fiber. Oh, it smells so good. In the colorway Fungi Filigree, and so I have fully skeined them now so you can see them. Super cute, super nice. It's so fluffy. You can just see the airiness in this, and I do love Rambouillet, and so it's looking really nice. I do love a good brown, neutral brown, and so this is making me very happy. I've mentioned this before, but I was spinning this to be my contrast color for my pressed flower shawl that I'm planning on making later this year, but it did end up being slightly darker than I was anticipating, and I love it. I love it, but I'm a little worried there won't be that much contrast with my main color for the shawl, and so I did start another spin, which it was funny because I actually planned on this other fiber combination to be my pressed flowers contrast color, and then I was like, no, I want it to be this, and now that I spun it, I'm like, actually, I think I'm gonna go with the other one. So it's kind of funny how it all came around, but I am still really happy with this spin, and I'm just now am like trying to think like, what can I use? What project can I use for this handspun? But also I don't have to know that all right away, because I just honestly I want to have like a full row in my yarn cabinet, like of just my handspun. And I'm quite happy that I do knit with my handspun quite often and quite a bit. And so that is why I feel like I've spun a lot, but I don't have that much in my yarn cabinet because I have knit with them a lot. And so, yeah, I am happy to just have these sit and be really pretty in my cabinet while I think about a great project for it. I do want to show you this, my little mini leftover skein that I have. This was total of 8 ounces of fiber, and so that's why I have like 2 skeins of this and then 1 little small leftover. But that is my finished handspun from last week. It is wash and block, so now it is fully done. Okay, and my new spin that I started this week is my other option for my contrast color for the pressed flower shawl, and I think that this is going to be the one. And this was the original plan, and so I'm happy to be spinning it. Let me hold up. It's actually 2 different color braids of fiber. One is a tonal and one is a variegated or a multicolored fiber braid. This fiber is also from Little Fibre Co., and it's also in the Rambouillet base, so it's a joy to spin right now. The color that I started with is this light pink. Kind of matches like my wall back here. It's this light blush pink, and this is Dusk, the colorway Dusk. And yeah, I've only spun, this is about like 1 ounce so far, and so I have 1 braid of Dusk, and then I'm going to do a 2-ply, and the other ply that I will ply it together with is going to be this braid, and it's so pretty. This is so pretty. These are very me colorways together, and I love it. I love it. There's that similar pink in this one. You can kind of see it, like those two together. These like pink sections here, or the blush pink sections. So also a bit more peachy sections here. Some like purpley and blue and kind of like greenish kind of colors in there, and I think it's going to be really pretty applied together. And I think that these two colorways were part of the like from the archives collection. I think this was for January this year potentially, and they were sold together as a pair, or like for that month. The tonal and variegated colorway pairing were these two, and so yeah, I think that they're going to apply really nicely together, and I'm just excited to see how that looks. And because it is a lighter color, I think that this will provide more of that contrast that I'm looking for the shawl. But yeah, so I don't really have a like projected goal date to finish the spin for this, as long as I finish it with enough time to also knit with it, because the pressed flower shawl is in my make 9 for this year, and so I would like to finish knitting that this year, which means I have to finish this before the end of the year, which I still have time. For some reason in my mind, September feels like it's like November for me or something. Like it feels like I need to have everything that I want for the year done in like the next month. But I still have months to go before the actual end of the year. But yeah, so that's my new spinning, and that's it for the whips. Okay, let me quickly talk about the acquisition that I got during Flock, but not from Flock. I actually, my friend, very kindly surprised me with buying me some fiber and yarn from Red Door when she had her Kpop Demon Hunters really like small, quick, I think it was an in-stock collection go out. I'm hoping Red Door is going to do a pre-order for Kpop Demon Hunters at some point, but you all know probably how much I love Kpop Demon Hunters, and I did not end up being able to buy yarn or fiber from this quick drop of the collection, but my friend did, and so she gave it to me when we met up during Flock, so thank you so much. And I forgot to show it to you all, but I'm going to hold it up now. The bag is really crinkly, and so I'm going to try and not move it around too much. But she got me this set of colors. There's one variegated in there in the middle. So pretty. Love it. This is, each of the skeins in these are 50 grams. And that's exciting because I don't think I ever bought or have like 50 gram skeins. It's either minis or full 100 gram skeins. So these are 200 yards for 50 grams. And then the fiber is that variegated colorway. Between Imposter and This Monster is the name of this one. So I feel like all of the colors in this that were available for this were inspired by the scene in the movie where the song Free plays, and it's so pretty. Those colors are so pretty, and so I think this is perfect. It came out perfect. And this is a Australian merino fiber, 23 micron, 80 millimeters staple length, 4 ounce braid, and it's so pretty, so pretty. So thank you so much to my friend, and yeah, so that was another acquisition that I got. There was a lot of acquisitions that was happening around Flock, just from like me buying from Flock, and also just like getting things from previous things that have happened. Okay, now speaking of yarn, I'm not done with sharing yarn, but this is not really an acquisition, even though I'm going to share with you yarn and fiber, but I did some yarn and fiber dyeing last weekend because it was a long weekend, and I wanted to make the most out of that long weekend, because it's been a while, I feel like, since I've had like a free long weekend to do some like fibery things, and I got like a new setup for yarn dyeing in my garage, And so I was really excited. I wanted to try it out. I got like a portable burner, and so I wanted to try that out too. I actually got that portable burner like last year for Christmas for myself. And I only now just like tried it out. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to do yarn dyeing this summer because it's too cold in the garage during the winter, and so I wanted to kind of like figure out the setup and stuff during the summer. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost the end of summer, I need to like do this right away. And then my goal for this yarn dyeing weekend was to actually just use up all of the yarn dye stock that I have made in the past, because I want to start fresh, clean slate. Also, because this dye stock, I've heard that they also kind of expire, but also some of them was starting to grow like molds or growing some gross stuff in there. So I was like, I just want to like use that up, obviously strain it out before I dye the yarn with it, but I want to clean that out. I want to just not have gross stuff happening in any of the thing in like my jars for yarn dyeing. I wanted to clean all that out. I just want to use it all because I don't want to dump that down the sink drain either, all the dye. So I just wanted to use it up in yarn. Also to like practice with my new setup, see how it goes, practice some more yarn dyeing, see how it goes. Also because I can now dye yarn in the garage and not like in my house, I also want to try speckling. I am using a mask, so it's fine, but I definitely wanted to only try speckling when I had like a kind of outdoor space to work with, to do that, and not inside my house, because the dyes in powder form is not good to inhale. So I actually tried some speckling. So I can show you some of my actually, let me first show you the fiber so I can it's on the top of my pile. I dyed 2 braids of fiber. Each I weighed out about 4 ounces. And one of them I like way more than the other. Some of the colors that ended up coming out was just I was just trying to use up all of the dye that I had. I was successful in using up all the dye, and so I feel really good about that, but some of the color combinations did not come out how I thought it would. But also I feel like someone would probably like this color combination. So let me know. Okay, this is my first braid that I dyed. This is also, I did all Cormo fiber this time around. So here's this one. I think for me personally, there's too much orange. I like the green that ended up in there, but the orange is a little too strong for me. And also this blue, it's a little too blue for me. And altogether, not my favorite color combination, but I think it would look pretty interesting. And again, I'm practicing dyeing fiber, still getting the hang of it. I feel like fiber just takes forever to dye. It takes forever. I think that this might have been hanging out in the pan, and I can only do 1 pan at a time for 2 hours. So I could be doing something wrong, but also the dye concentrations I've had in this, because again, I'm trying to use up all of my dye, was so strong. Lots of color, very saturated. And the blues take long to exhaust, the dye, because you have to dye it until the water is clear, or keep heating it until the water is clear. And I feel with the blues, just in the past too, and just dark colors just take forever. And also I had more green in this. Oh no, sorry. I had more blue in this, but it blended with the orange. And so that's actually how the green happened in here. It blended with the orange. And so that's how I got green. I actually did not put a green dye in this pan. But yeah, so this is how it came out. And I don't think I felted this. That is my one worry too, is how do I not felt the fiber? I've had successful non-felting of fiber, and then I've also had really bad felting of fiber. But I don't think I felted this, which is great for me. Okay, this next one, I do really like how this one came out, but this also took forever to dye up because of the dark colors and also the blues. This one I did put greens in. So purposefully there's greens in this. And I basically just tried to use up like all of the blues and greens that I had. My teal, I have different shades of blue and green, and so I just kind of put them all in here, and I think it came out really nice. This one's really, really pretty. But it did take forever for this one to dye up too. This might have been also like 2.5 hours before it looked decent. I think this one still might the dye might rub off on your hands a little bit if you were to spin it. So again, I'm still learning, still experimenting. But this one, I do love. These color combinations, I do really love. Let me like twirl this up in a little thing like this. Yeah, love that. I think that one's really pretty. I would probably dye that similar combination again. Okay, let's move on to my other, like my actual yarn that I dyed. Ooh, let's talk about the speckling that I tried. Okay, so in each of the pans that I dyed of the yarn, I did 2 skeins at a time. I didn't want it to be too crowded. I also didn't want to, like, quote, waste too much yarn with my experiments because, I want to do more experiments and not use up as much yarn because I do have to buy bare yarn to do all of this. But I feel like 2 skeins is probably good. 1, I feel like is not enough in the pan, but I think 2 feels right for me, at least right now. Okay, let me hold up these 2 very different colors. For these ones, I was practicing, like, again, because I wanted to use up all of the yarn dyes I had, or the yarn dye stocks that I had. I really went in and did a lot of kind of variegated colors, and so I was trying to, like, layer colors on the yarn. Let's talk about this one first. This might have been the one I did first, my first speckling experiment. Okay, this one, I did put in a lot of the blues and purples dye that I had, and I kind of did some layering of that, and so you can see that there's some white spots and some lighter spots, and then the speckle color that I tried with this one was like must have been like this, I'm trying to remember, well, anyway, it is this like dark purpley, it might have been, I don't think it was the eggplant color, I forget, but it is this dark maroon kind of color. And this one, I feel like the speckles just like blended quite a bit. You can see like here, like it kind of doesn't look very speckly and with like little dots. It just looks like it blended. And I think that maybe they didn't set quite right. I maybe had too much water in it. Maybe it wasn't hot enough so that it didn't like right away when it hit the yarn like set. So it was interesting, but there are some sections, maybe like right there, right here, that look a bit more spotty, more speckly. But I think for a first try, I think not bad. This blue is like pretty dark, or just pretty blue for me, but would be interesting. I did dye this on like a sock yarn, I believe. It's a fingering weight. So I'm trying to figure out what I could use to knit this up to see how my hand dyed variegated speckly color actually works up, knitted up, because it sometimes will look very different. And I want to see if it's even or not even. But yeah, so this was my first speckling experiment. And then this was my second one. This is a DK weight yarn. And this one, I had more of this like amethyst color going in this. And then I did try to do 2 different color speckles in this. And I think speckles on this worked out a little bit better. I did like a teal color speckle, and then I did like a bright pink speckle. They're still blended. They're not as like, small and little dots. But I do think that this one, I do remember it didn't bleed as much as the other one. But again, still kind of splotchy and not in a speckly way. But, first experiments, I think not bad. Oh, I did have some like darker brown color in here as well. I think it shows up more in this skein than it does in this one. This one also, I think, has more white that didn't get dyed. So interesting. I think these two, even though they were in the same pan together, I think they're going to look quite different knit up together. I would say, okay, right here, I feel like the speckles did a pretty good job. I know my camera doesn't focus very quickly, so I'm hoping you can just kind of see those colors pop out, just like right here. I think that did not a terrible job at the speckling. But yeah, so this was my other color experiment. Let's see. Okay, these next ones also took forever to dye. But that's because these are really dark colors. Okay, this one, it just had some really dark red brown. Oh, this one was like a really bright, I think it's called like fire engine red. Then I had a brown, a dark brown, and I combined them. This one I did actually try to do. I was like, what would it look like dyeing in the pan to try and do a tonal? And this one, you can definitely see the variation in the color tone. Like there's just some really much darker spots in it, even though I like mixed it in the pan to just be one color and then I put it in. There's just, you can see it like right here. There's like a clear, much darker section and a lighter section. So interesting. I don't have this problem when I dye tonals like in a pot. I think just because there's more water area. Maybe I need to fill the pans with more water. That could be it. But these two are 50 grams each, actually. And I think that this actually has some like Angora in the yarn. I have to re-look at my labels so I know what yarn is which. But I do really like this color overall. I'm really into this color. And so I would dye this color combination again with that bright red plus a brown to get this color. Very pretty. And so I feel like I could use this for like a shawl. Right? I think this is maybe like a DK weight yarn or maybe a sport weight. This color came out really pretty, so I'm very happy with this result. Okay, this next one, also crazy. This one I did try to dye as a variegated, and so I, put in one color and kind of like set it, and then put in another color and set it, and kind of do some like flipping of the yarn. This one came out crazy dark. This one, and let me turn this around because you can see there's some like bright pink sections. So I did have some pinks in here, maybe a red, I think pink. And then I just layered in a whole bunch of like darker purples. And there's some sections, it just looks black, like right here. And I do not have a black dye. Like this is just from how much purple, dark purple that I was mixing and layering with. Again, this is a really pretty, it turned out really pretty. I think some sections a little too dark for me, but some of the lighter sections where it's pink and purple, like maybe like right here, I love how this turned out. So I'm unsure where this like brown golden section came out, like right here. I totally forgot what colors I used for this. And also these are all going to be kind of like, one of a kind because I did not weigh out anything or measure anything for the dye because I'm just trying to like use the rest of my leftover dye stock. And so I just poured what I had in. But yeah, this came out really interesting. I like certain sections of this. Definitely the lighter sections and the other dark, really dark sections. I'm just shocked at how like black it looks. I mean, it really does look black. But yeah, pretty. I feel like I want to knit this up in a shawl maybe. This is a really soft floppy yarn. This might have some alpaca in it, is going to be my guess. But it's really drapey, and so I think that would be nice. And I'm so curious to see how this knits up as well. The two skeins look very different too. This one has a really bright pink spots, and this one does not really have any of that. So it would be interesting to see if I knit them together like in one project, if I don't alternate skeins, which I probably won't, like just to see how that looks different. And again, I dyed these both in the same pan. So again, interesting to see how much variation you can get even if it's in a single pan. Honestly, it's probably down to like my technique of pouring the dyes, but I'm experimenting and it's quite fun. So yeah, okay, I know that this was my second to last. I have 2 more kind of colorways to share with you all, and these might be my favorite ones of everything that I made. And these 2 are on the same base. It's like a DK weight 2-ply like silk blend. I love this. You know I love a good brown, and this has like that brown pink color that I love. Here it is. This is another kind of like layering variegated yarn that I tried out, and I just put in all the different browns that I had left to go. Some, look, there's sections, like maybe right here you can just see it. There's like a bit more of an orangey section, a light brown. One of the colors is called Fawn, and I feel like that I might have like accidentally mixed my dye stock with a pink at some point because I was experimenting with the fawn brown color and pinks, and so I do think that gives a bit more of a brown pink color. It honestly isn't showing up that well on the camera, but you can see all the different shades of brown in here, and that's very much my vibe. And so I'm very, very happy with these. Also, it's so nice and shiny in the silk base. But yeah, so these were my second to last experiment. And then at the very end, I had some of the stronger, darker colors didn't quite get used up. Even if I pour the rest of the dye stock in, there's still some leftover color in the jar. And so what I did was I just added more water to them because the dark colors are really concentrated. Like if you just add a whole bunch of water into what's ever left, it still has some color. And I was like, I want to make like a nice pastel-y kind of color thing with some of the leftover colors that I have in the jars. I hope that made sense. But I just like filled up the rest of, it might have been like 6 different colors, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 colors that were still had some leftover dye in it. And so I just filled them up with water, and I used that as my last skeins that I dyed that weekend, and I really like how these came out. They're very light, as you can tell, or as you maybe have guessed, because it is just the leftover dyes from some of the other colors, and I didn't think too hard about which colors to use. I had a lot of pinks and purples, some blues, and I had a lot of this orange, and so that is kind of, I think, the most saturated color in this, and like a brown. But I really love how these came out. Also, because they're such lighter colors, they set so much faster than the rest of the yarn and fiber that I dyed, and so this finished so quickly to dye, and I was like, next yarn, colors that I dye, and also this is more my style of color anyway, I'm gonna go for just lighter colors. It'll dye so much faster, and I think I will be happier with the color result too. Don't get me wrong, I do love a good like brown, dark brown, and like brown red kind of color, dark purple. I think they're really pretty greens, but I do just love a good pastel kind of color. So I want to do more of that next time I dye, and then I have a clean slate right now. I used up all of my dye, and so I can just like restart. I have a little bit more equipment now to work with to dye yarn and to make it easier for me, and so I'm excited. I don't know the next time I will dye yarn because this took really long time. I think this took like basically 2 full days of me doing. A lot of it was just like letting it sit, and then I did like house chores while it sat in the water heating up, but it did just take a lot of going back and forth and checking and all of that yarn, and then having to like wash it after, dry it after, hang it to dry, prep the yarn and all of that, but it was quite fun, and so I'm excited to dye yarn again in hopefully the near future. But I think this might be one of my favorite ones I dyed last weekend. But yay. Okay, so that's all I have to talk with you all this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there wasn't too much knitting to talk about, but I did get a lot of progress done on the projects I did work on, and so it does make me feel happy. And, you know, I started another spin, had all of this yarn dyeing stuff to share with you all. As you can maybe see, I finally got in, I think I mentioned I wanted to put like a lamp here. I was making space for it, and I finally got it, and I set it up right before filming the podcast. So, got my lamp. I think it's really cute. It kind of has this like flowery kind of look, like circle bulb thing going on, and I really like it. So, that's all I have to talk with you all today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you've been working on lately, because as you know, I love hearing about your projects and getting inspiration for mine. And yeah, I'm hoping to get some more knitting done on my other projects this coming week, and I can't wait to share it with you all in next week's video. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!